Oh, there's been a lot of changes, yeah. I've took in all the changes. Yeah, like I was a little boy, you know, at home. And my grandmother used to dry the fish, you know, in the smokehouse. Then when the fish got dried, it was just hard as a board. Real hard. That's the way the Indians dried their fish. Then she'd tell me in the evening, you know, take this dry salmon down to the river and throw it in the river. Tie a bale hay wire onto the fish, then tie it onto a limb and leave it in the water all night. So the next morning, he'd set me down again after the dry salmon. And I'd go down and bring the dry salmon back into the... We lived in a smokehouse. It's a long house, but they call them smokehouse. And I'd bring the fish back up, and she'd cut them up and throw them in a pot and boil them up. Boiled potatoes, that's what we'd have for breakfast, dried fish. And that fish was just so nice and tender after it had been soaked in the river all night. It was just nice and tender, you know. You could eat it without teeth. Real good fish, good eating.
This is Bill Frank. He's 91 years old. He remembers how it used to be.
And we mostly lived on dried fish and fresh fish and all different kinds of fish, you know, that they come up the river. This river, Nisqually River, we lived up there about 5 miles from here, the mouth of Muck Creek. There must have been a village there. There were 3 of these long houses there, 3 smoke houses, when I come to, you know, and I come into real life things.
This is the Nisqually Indian Reservation, created under the provisions of the Medicine Creek Treaty of 1854. Like most reservation land, it was later allotted to individual Indian families. When Bill Frank was born in 1879, his family lived on their allotment of 205 acres.
Now, Dad, when you was living back over here on your property across the river, was there a lot more fish, Dad, at that time than there is today?
Oh, yes. The river was just full of fish. All these creeks were full of fish. Yellow Creek, Muck Creek. Yeah. Several other creeks on up to toward the La Grande.
During World War I, the Army condemned the reservation land on the east side of the river for Fort Lewis. All the families on that side of the river were removed from their homes, and the government decided what compensation they were going to receive. Bill Franks received 6 acres, several miles downstream from the reservation, and it is still held for him in federal trust like allotted reservation land. This is the place still known today as Frank's Landing. Bill Frank lives here. His wife, Angeline, lives with him.
Make your wish. Blow the candle out.
His son, Bill Jr., lives here too, with his wife, Norma, their 2 children, Sugar and Maureen. Bill Frank Jr. and his family live in this house. And in this house lives Maiselle, Grandpa's daughter, with her husband, Al Bridges. Elle and Maiselle have 3 daughters, the youngest, Allison, and Valerie. Their oldest daughter, Suzette, lives here with her husband, Sid Mills, and the baby, Poughton. And then there's Herman Johns, better known as Curly, another of Bill Frank's grandchildren. This is the family that lives at Frank's Landing. During the summer, they work at various jobs, frequently in neighboring berry fields and tree farms. But when autumn comes and the salmon start running, Bill Frank's family, like all their ancestors, set their nets for fish. They smoke some for themselves and they sell some, even as their ancestors did when they traded dried salmon for articles from the interior. Now, one thing is different than it used to be. Now, when they set their nets in the evening, the game wardens sit and watch from the other side of the river.
No jurisdiction on this property. There's no court to tell that you have jurisdiction on this property.
We were arrested. That is illegal. We're going to have to see that this time. Hey, Sydney, you're under arrest.
My father and Sid were arrested off the landing here. So the following day, to let them know that we weren't going to quit fishing, Allison and I, my younger sister, set a net up there at the trestle, about a mile and a half from here, upriver.
In 1854, Territorial Governor Isaac Stevens made treaties with all the Indians in Washington. The Indians gave up all claims to the land in the territory except for special areas reserved to them. In return, they were to receive payments and were promised that they and their descendants would always have the right to fish in their usual and accustomed grounds. Valerie Bridges grew up learning how to fish here on the Nisqually, where her grandfather fished.
Valerie, you heard when your grandfather told of a white man who came with promises of gold, saying, "Sell us the land that lies under the sun. You'll live free as long as the rivers run, as long as the rivers run."
We set the net and waited for the state. We're just going to let them know that we're not going to quit fishing. We have this fishing right. It's a treaty, supreme law of the land under their constitution. And we're not going to give up our fishing rights. There are treaties throughout the United States being broken. That's really what it is, a treaty we're fighting for. Treaties throughout the United States. We resisted when they did try to take our net because it is our property, and not only protecting our property, but ourselves, because we too have been clubbed, night raids, tear gassed, and we're getting sick and tired of it.
He promised us gold. He promised us grain, he promised us houses safe from the rain. He said that his words could not be undone, but would last for as long as the rivers run, as long as the rivers run.
A lot of people have asked, how long I've been involved in this, or my family. And I go back to when my little girl was 2.5 years old, my youngest girl, and she'll be 19 next month. When she was 2.5 years old was the very first time that her dad was arrested and did 30 days in jail. This was her first experience in going into a judge's courtroom, if you can call a JP courtroom.
Maiselle Bridges, Bill Frank's daughter, Valerie, and Allison, and Suzette's mother.
And they did this in the space of 2-3 hours. Like, they took him in, they sentenced him and put him right into jail. So my girls, all 3 of them, have been involved in this fishing struggle practically all their lives.
Leshai said no, he was caught, he was hung. The treaty was made, nothing else could be done. We said, we'll keep our promises if you keep just one. Let us fish for as long as the rivers run, as long as the rivers run.
The U.S. Supreme Court confirms that the treaty is still valid, but they say the state also has the right to impose conservation regulations. The Washington Fisheries and Game Department say that to conserve the fish, the mouth of the rivers must remain closed to net fishing. But the river mouths always were the fishing grounds of the Indians. And once again, Al Bridges has to hawk a motor to bail a daughter out of jail.
Valerie, you knew all this history well, but you saw your father being taken to jail, and you vowed you would fight for your people till we'd won what was ours for as long as the rivers run, as long as the rivers run.
Well, I think they're using, the state is using the term conservation as a weapon against the Indian to stop us altogether from fishing. You know, when you speak of conservation, if they're going to conserve, they should start conserving out in the outer waters, particularly in the Puget Sound. After the fish leave the Straits of Juan de Fuca, you can go out here in the Puget Sound when they're fishing out there and find numerous commercial boats. And their take, one purseine boat out there in the Sound can take probably, more fish in one day than our whole group here can take in one season. There's various ways that the Indian has always practiced conservation. This was done almost automatically. Not only did they allow an escapement, but elements of nature provide for escapement, or used to. But from when the treaty was first signed in 1854, when we ceded the land didn't mean that we gave up our hunting and fishing rights. We think that we should be able to fish this way, and fish and hunt this way, and live this way, live off the resources, the natural resources. This is probably what you'd call the Indian's last stand. Otherwise, you're just there'll no longer be what's known as an Indian or an Indian way of life. I know some boys around here, in fact, that if they were to be taken to a city, they'd want to come back to this kind of living. One in particular already has a trade as a welder, but he said, if I have to live in the city in order to make a living of that sort, then I'll go back out in the country and hoe berries or do something. It just is so I can get back to my way of my way that I want to live, and this is the Indian way. We used to think that we'd find justice in the courts. This was before we'd be arrested, and we'd be taken to jail, and we'd serve our time. Then we'd come back out, and then we'd hide around and fish. We found out that we weren't getting justice in the courts, so in order to find some sort of a solution for this, we figured that if we got the public interested enough to where they'd see what's going on in the courts, that we would get some sort of justice. We're gonna fish with the spirits they feed. We're gonna fish with the spirits they feed. You gotta go in the spirits they feed. We're gonna fish so low. We're gonna fish with the spirits they feed. I'm gonna do what the spirits they do. I'm gonna do what the spirits they do. Oh, the spirits they do. I'm gonna do all I'm gonna do.
And then in 1964, we just said, well, we're not moving no more. And one of the first things we did was to organize a Indian organization. And this is what we did. We called ourselves the Survival American Indian Association. And our main goal and purpose of this organization was to fight for treaty rights. And from that time on, the fight has been building up, and gradually it's really, you know, taken up our full time.
In 1968, the Survival Organization enlisted the support of sympathetic young people to help keep a 24-hour guard on the nets of the Indian fishermen, because if the nets and boats were unguarded, they would be stolen by fishermen or destroyed by sportsmen.
If you want something and if it's yours, you've got to fight to keep it. And our people just aren't grasping this idea. They think that one of these days the government's going to feel sorry for them and give them what they want. This isn't so. So we have these young kids today. Right now they see what's happening to the Indians, so they come forward to offer their help, and we've accepted their help.
Fishermen and sheriff deputies came at night, making arrests and seizing nets, but the young people held on. As fall turned into winter, they built temporary shelters and lived in them. Buffy St. Marie visited the encampment. To dramatize the fishing rights, the Frank Landing encampment moved into Olympia and set a net at the mouth of the dam where there is a fish ladder. The fishery officers and police responded, giving the public a chance to see the kind of action that usually takes place under the cover of night on the Nisqually River. Come gather round me and I'll sing you a song. I'll tell you a story of people that were strong. We live with nature in harmony, obeying the laws that were taught to me, greeting a stranger with an open hand, sheltered and fed him and called him friend. Once I was wild as the eagle in the sky, free to love and to live and to die. I roam this land from the mountains to the sea, brother to the elk, the bear and the deer. Up the river, the lakes, and the redwood tree. This was my land as far as I could see. I had no jails nor prison farm, no barbed wire to do me harm. I paid no one to rule over me. No one owned the shade of the tree. I swam the...
Now we have another beautiful young red sister, Suzette Bridges. Yeah! You know, when we go out and talk to all these citizens of America, we tell them, you better do something about your government, because your government is awfully sick. And it's trying to make our people sick. And I keep trying to explain to these people, we're never, never, never going to be like them. And I don't know what's wrong with Dan Evans, and I don't know what's wrong with Don Carlson. Why is it that they keep practicing genocide on my people? And I keep telling him that he better get his ass in gear.
Of the people who came to help in '68, only one stayed. Sid Mills, a Yakima Indian station at Fort Lewis, announced he would not go back to the Army. Instead, he remained at Frank's Landing and married Suzette. A year later, dozens of cases were still in court. The survival of American Indian Association was broke. So once again, the family at Frank's Landing was alone on the Nisqually River. The day came that Al, Sid, Valerie, and Allison were all in jail. Suzette had just had a baby, Poughton. So Maiselle Bridges and Norma Frank were left to fish by themselves.
Illegal gear, and it's going to be taken.
You'll have to take us with it, because we're not letting go fishing under the Medicine Creek Treaty, and we're both all members. We are too.
You're poaching is what you're doing.
We're not either. You're the one that's poaching. You're the ones that's encroaching on our land.
Hook that in.
We're not taking this net. This is the last net we got.
Both under arrest for fishing and cold water.
And then something happened that was felt around the world. A group of Indians captured and held Alcatraz Island and claimed it in the name of all tribes. Indians from all over came together to experience unity and strength. The girls and Sid went down with Poughton as soon as they learned about it. Elle and Maiselle and Curly came a little later with a carload of food and clothes sent by the Washington Indians.
You know, we're going to cross them. I'm going to close it where it's cute.
Yes,
they work for the United States. What did they hold?
They help at the state regulate, where they allow the first aid boats and the uniters to come right in within 4 miles of our area.
When they got to the docks, they were greeted by an old friend, John Vigil, who had fished with them at Frank's Landing the winter before. He was one of the first to occupy Alcatraz and agreed to take them on a tour.
Up there in the water town. Flag flying high. Artichokes, huh?
Oh, artichokes?
Yep.
Looks like a poppy.
Nobody's going to be climbing up the hill.
How pretty it is.
Try to overrun this island.
Alcatraz had been one of the things that the Indians had known was possible for them to do. Those that knew of the laws created by the federal government and the nature of the treaties, they knew they had exclusive reversionary title to the place. There was an approach by the older conservatives, but the youth became immediately dissatisfied. And 14 of us hired a fishing boat, found a fishing boat captain who wasn't afraid to take us to the island. We all paid him $3 each, and he took us on across, man. And we went there, not really knowing fully what to expect, but we knew that we were within our rights.